Okay, so let's dive in. We're in this moment where AI capabilities are just exploding. I mean, every day there's a breakthrough with language models, computer vision, you name it.
It's an incredible pace.
But here's the problem, the real problem we're looking at today. The tech is accelerating way, way faster than the governance structures we have to
I
manage it.
see a huge gap.
And that massive growing gap is what we're digging into. Our source for this is the extensive training program for the PCB Certified AI Professional, or CAIP. It's basically a roadmap for professionalizing AI leadership.
Right. It's trying to shift the focus, not just about building the fastest model, but the most responsible one.
Exactly.
And that's really our mission here. We need to
Yeah.
look past the hype, the stuff that dominates the headlines, and figure out what a certification like this actually means.
Wow.
It's an attempt to build real competence across the board, technical, strategic, and, this is the key part, the ethical side of things.
So all the pieces you need to actually design, deploy, and manage AI solutions responsibly.
Yeah. For an organization to treat AI as just a technical toy in a silo, that's a strategic failure waiting to happen. This training says AI governance is a leadership issue. Full stop.
Which leads right into what I think is the biggest takeaway from this whole curriculum. It's something that should be front and center for any professional moving into an AI leadership role.
Okay.
AI projects fail more often because of governance gaps than because of technical problems.
Yes, 100%.
You can have the most beautiful, optimized algorithm on the planet,
Yeah.
but if you don't have the framework to manage its risk to ensure compliance, the project is heading for a cliff. And probably a very public, very costly one.
Exactly. And when you think about what that means in the real world, the risks are. They're profound. We're not just talking about a system crashing because of some buggy code.
Yeah.
We are talking about systemic damage to the organization. Think about algorithmic bias. Let's say you have an AI tool for screening resumes or loan applications.
That's a classic example.
Bless. Yeah. If that system is systematically unfair to certain groups of people, that's not just a technical glitch. That's an immediate regulatory problem, a huge PR nightmare, and it just fundamentally undermines your company's values.
And the ground is shifting under our feet with regulations. We've got the EU AI Act coming into focus. And that's just a signal of where things are heading globally. There's this move toward demanding accountability. Organizations have to prove their systems aren't just black boxes.
They need explainability.
Right. If an AI makes a bad call and an auditor asks you why and you can't answer, you're in deep trouble. A CAIP professional is trained to see that coming.
They're like the risk engineers for AI. The competent CIIP holder knows that, tying AI to business goals is only half the job.
What's the other half?
The other half is linking those same capabilities to the company's risk tolerance, to its compliance duties, and its public accountability. They're governing the whole life cycle.
I think it's useful to look at who this is for, because it really shows how wide this knowledge gap is. It's not just for data scientists who want a promotion.
Not at all.
We're talking IT managers overseeing deployment, compliance officers worried about legal exposure, and even the C-suite CIOs, COOs, the people setting the strategy.
It signals a fundamental shift. AI is no longer a niche R&D project. It's now table stakes for risk management.
Okay, so let's get into the meat of it, the core competencies. The curriculum seems really structured to avoid getting, bogged down in super specific technical details.
It is. It's built around 5 core areas, and they're engineered to make sure professionals are asking the right questions at every stage of an AI project. It's a blend of theory and real-world application.
So domain 1, foundations and applications. This is the baseline, getting everyone speaking the same language. We're talking about the evolution from old rule-based systems to modern machine learning. Is the goal just definitions?
Not at all. The goal is critical evaluation and communication. If you're a manager, you have to be able to look at what a vendor is selling you and actually understand it.
To cut through the marketing fluff.
Precisely. To know the difference between something that's really doing reinforcement learning versus something that's just a glorified spreadsheet analysis. Without that, you're just throwing money away based on buzzwords.
That makes sense. It's the translation layer. So let's go a bit deeper. Domain 2, data and modeling methodology. This feels like the technical core, starting with data analysis. Why is data quality such a big deal in a governance certification?
Because data quality is the single biggest predictor of model failure, and therefore of regulatory risk.
Okay.
Professionals have to learn to spot bad data, to see the bias baked into a data set, and to understand the intense work required to pre-process it. If your training data is skewed, your model will be skewed, period.
Garbage in, garbage out.
The old saying holds true. A CIP holder has to have the authority to say, stop. Our data infrastructure isn't ready for this. They have to force the organization to look in the mirror and ask, do we actually have the foundation to do this responsibly?
And then we get to the modeling itself.
Yeah.
Machine learning, deep learning. It covers supervised, unsupervised, reinforcement learning. But hang on. If the focus is high-level governance, why do they need to know the guts of a neural network? Isn't that overkill for a COO?
That's a fantastic question, and it gets to the heart of why this certification has to have some real depth. You cannot govern what you don't fundamentally understand.
Okay, but you don't need to code it, right?
No, you don't need to be able to code it, but you absolutely have to understand the trade-offs. Deep learning, for example, is often a black box. It's very hard to explain its decisions.
Which is a huge compliance risk.
A massive one, especially in high-stakes fields like finance or healthcare. So the CAIP professional learns that distinction. They learn when deep learning is the right tool versus when a simpler, more explainable model like a decision tree is actually safer, better, and more auditable.
So the key isn't complexity, it's appropriateness. It's about spotting that expensive over-engineering you talked about.
That's it, exactly. They're trained to challenge the technical team's assumptions. They can say, I understand reinforcement learning is powerful, but it's not transparent. For this regulated use case, it's a non-starter. That insight alone saves millions.
Okay, moving quickly through Domain 3, the specialized fields like NLP and computer vision. These are enormous topics. The training isn't trying to make people experts here, is it?
No, the goal is context and specific risk identification. With natural language processing, the big risk is often the bias hidden in the language data itself, which can then get embedded in a customer service bot. With computer vision, the risks often shift more towards privacy, surveillance, that sort of thing. The point is to know that an NLP model needs a very different governance framework than a predictive maintenance engine.
This all leads us to what you call the critical bridge, Section 3, the ethical foundation and risk management. This feels like what really sets the CAIP apart.
It's absolutely central to its value, and we're not talking about, vague philosophy. It's about operationalizing ethics.
What does that mean in practice?
It means learning to identify the sources of algorithmic bias. Is it in the historical data, the way we collected it, the way the model is optimized? And then learning how to evaluate specific fairness metrics, which gets really nuanced.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Knowing the difference between demographic parity, which means aiming for equal outcomes for all groups, and equal opportunity, which means equal treatment for people with the same qualifications. Those are very different goals with different mathematical and ethical trade-offs.
That's a level of detail that goes way beyond a simple ethics checkbox.
It has to. And that leads right into formal risk and compliance. The curriculum gets very specific about AI risk categories.
Like what?
Safety, security, privacy, fairness, transparency. And it directly ties them to emerging laws like the EU AI Act, which sorts AI into risk tiers.
High risk, low risk.
Exactly. And if your system gets labeled high risk, say it's used in hiring or for critical infrastructure, your compliance burden just skyrockets. The training is meant to help you see that coming, to be proactive instead of reactive.
And to make this all real, there's the part on AI system deployment. This is the operational side. What happens after the model goes live?
This is where the rubber meets the road. We're talking about model monitoring, what we call drift detection.
Drift detection.
Yeah, it's basically making sure the model's performance doesn't degrade over time. The real world changes, right? Economic conditions shift. User behavior changes. If that happens, the data the model sees in production can be so different from its training data that its predictions become useless or even harmful.
And it can happen silently.
Silently. The CAIP professional learns how to set up triggers for retraining the model to manage that volatility.
And what about documentation? Probably the least exciting part of any project, but I'm guessing it's crucial here.
It's your legal defense. In my own work, I can tell you that rigorous documentation, what data you used, why you chose a certain model, how you tested for bias, how you're monitoring it, that's everything.
It's the audit trail.
It's the audit trail. When a regulator asks, why did the system do that? You need a clear, defensible answer. The case studies in the training, from healthcare, finance, hiring, they all hammer that point home.
That definitely makes the stakes clear. So let's talk about the path. Who is this actually for? The prerequisites seem really important.
They're critical. And You need to be honest with yourself here. This course is not for a complete beginner. You can't just be generally tech
You
savvy.
need a foundation.
You need a foundation, a basic understanding of data analysis, stats, and some familiarity with programming concepts. Without that, the strategic discussions about model trade-offs just won't make sense.
And the format is self-paced e-learning. That requires a lot of self-discipline. It's not a coding boot camp where someone is holding your hand.
Right. It's structured content, you get an exam voucher, professional development credits, but the real value comes when you compare that with support from people who actually do this for a living.
People who implement these governance frameworks in the real world.
Yeah, you need that connection to avoid just learning theory in a vacuum.
Okay, so once you've done the work, there are two different levels of certification.
That's right. The first is the PECB Certified Provisional Artificial Intelligence Professional. This is for someone who passes the exam, signs the code of ethics, but doesn't have the professional experience yet. It validates their knowledge.
And the full credential, what's the hurdle there?
That's the PECB Certified Artificial Intelligence Professional. For that, you need to pass the exam, sign the code, and document 2 years of professional experience, with at least one of those years specifically in an AI-related role.
And that experience part is key, I assume.
It's everything. It proves you haven't just memorized concepts. It shows you've actually applied them, that you've navigated the complexities of implementing governance and working across different teams in a real business.
And the exam reflects that. The source material is very clear. It's not about memorizing definitions.
Not at all. It's scenario-based. They'll give you a case study and ask you to evaluate the risks or to recommend a governance approach. It tests your judgment.
It tests if you can apply the knowledge under pressure.
That's it.
So if we pull this all together, the real value of the CIIP is how it bridges that gap we talked about at the beginning. It connects the technical foundations with the strategic and governance oversight that's so critical now. The goal isn't just a better model. It's about ensuring your organization is accountable, legally defensible, and that stakeholders actually trust what you're building.
And that holistic view is what makes it different. It's vendor neutral. It's focused on universal frameworks. That makes it a great complement to a vendor-specific credential, not a competitor.
So you might get the CAIP for the big picture strategy and risk.
And then stack a certification from a cloud provider on top for the hands-on, platform-specific skills. They work together.
But here's the really interesting part for me. The certification shows you've learned the material and passed a test. But it doesn't guarantee you a job, and it doesn't guarantee your project will succeed. It's a tool, not a magic bullet.
Right.
So for everyone listening, the CIOs, the compliance folks, the tech leads, the final thought is this. Once you have this structured knowledge of AI governance, how do you actually translate it into influence, into leadership? How do you make sure your company doesn't become the next cautionary tale? That application? Well, that's entirely up to you.